In this video, we will complete our tour of the user interface and apply trigger to our snare and toms. After that, I will show you how I was able to create the beatbox trick in less than a minute. Switching back to our deluxe kick sound, let's explore the editing section. The editing section gives you the ability to customize how trigger plays back the samples. The dynamics knob is like a filter where you can say what samples to trigger in a multi-layered sample. Say you have a drummer who plays with a very soft touch and you want the plugin to trigger samples to hit a bit harder. Simply dial down the knob and you can essentially change what the lowest playback sample level is allowed to be. Velocity is a curve that allows you to adjust the loudness feel of your drummer. If they played too loudly and you want a softer sample reproduction, dial it down to create softer ghost notes. If you want less ghost notes, dial up the velocity to increase the drummer's hits. If you're a bit confused as to the difference between the two knobs, think about it like this. Dialing down the dynamics knob to 0 tells trigger to only play back the sample that lives within a multi-layered sample at number 127. Trigger will still apply velocity to this sample, but the same sample will be replayed each time the drum is replaced. With velocity at 0.50, trigger will still apply volume to this sample equal to what the original record has. So if you wanted to trigger the same sample at 127, always at full volume, you would dial up both velocity and dynamics to full. Stylistically, this is something you might find in hip-hop or techno-based music, similar to what you might expect out of a drum machine, where a kick or a snare is much more static. The link button allows you to control both dynamics and velocity at the same rate, giving you faster control and a more natural sound curve. On top of all of this, Trigger has 4 preset articulation styles located here. All instruments in the instrument library have articulation presets, also called modes. Kick drums and toms have 2 modes. First, they have a full mode, and second, they have an aggressive mode, which takes out the lower layer. Snare drums get 2 additional modes. First, they have the full mode. Second, a rim shot articulation mode to get more rim shots. Third, a soft mode without the hardest layers. And fourth, a hard mode without the softest layers. Now that we've covered all the controls, let's begin blending sounds together. First, I want you to note the solo, mute, and phase reverse buttons. Solo allows you to only hear the cell you have soloed. Mute will, of course, mute that cell. And phase will actually undermine trigger and reverse the sample's phase. If you recall from video 1, trigger actually does a process where it automatically lines up the phase of your new sample with your original kick drum, as well as multiple samples. That way, there's no comb filtering or destruction of audio in between samples. This can often impact your sound in a number of unwanted ways, but it can also create some interesting effects. This is something you might want to switch on and off and listen to the difference. If you like one better than the other, then that's the one you choose. Most often, Trigger's automatic phase alignment is the right choice, but sometimes you need to try and flip the phase to work with a different track in your mix. You just won't know until you try it. Next, we have a pan knob, which mostly is used on toms to set their position in the drum kit. But don't forget that Trigger can play back any sample you desire, so if you want to have Trigger hit a hi-hat sample, you absolutely can, and then you just pan it into the right place in your mix. Underneath that is the tuning knob. You find this control in just about every drum machine, but it allows you to pitch your sample up or down based on what you're hearing in the song. Sometimes the actual note sound of a drum will clash with what you're doing, and as soon as you tune it into the key of the song, the drums begin to sing and really come alive in the mix. This can also be very useful. Say if you have a kick and it's just not deep enough, you can tune it down and get more bottom end. Or if you wanted to use an 808 kick drum like in our previous example, you could pitch it up or down with the song to create melody. The final control is the volume fader, so you can blend the individual sounds living in the sample cells. This is our primary tool in customizing sound. So let's take a moment and explore the preset we have currently loaded. Now that you have a customized sound, you can save it into your own personal sample library using the Save Preset button, located here. Simply use your built-in browser and save it to whatever folder you desire. Now that we've covered all the controls inside Trigger, there's one last thing you need to know. How do I get rid of sounds? Very easy. You just move over and right-click to clear slot. Now they're empty again, and you can load up a brand new patch. If you didn't want to have to do it this way, you could load up as much as you want, and then just go in and load in a new preset. And you get the benefit of all the pre-programmed sounds that come with Trigger without having to actually empty any of the slots. But now that we know how to use Trigger, let's go ahead and apply it into our mix, starting with the snare drum. The leakage suppression system is by far one of the best functions inside Trigger because it gives you the ability to tell Trigger what not to trigger by feeding in an aux send from any offending sounds that bled into the microphone. So here's how you do it. First, we need to create a stereo auxiliary track and set the input to any available stereo bus. And name it appropriately Trigger Snare. Then we're going to set the input. And then I want to take the output of our snare over and send it to the left side of whatever bus we just chose. Remember when the kick drum was only playing back out of the left side? Well, this is why. In a stereo instance of Trigger, the right input channel is reserved for the leakage suppression key input. Let's say your snare drum is getting bleed from the toms, and they're loud enough that they're interfering with the detail knob setting and the retriggering, like this. Now, as you can hear, there are toms in the snare recording. So when I try and play back the fill with Trigger at a bypass, it sounds like this. So it's actually replacing the toms with snares. Now we just don't want it to play at all. So here's how you fix it. Shoot down to your toms, pick them both, and we're going to create mono aux sends going to the right input of the triggered snare, like this. Set them both to unity and pre-fader. And you're ready to go. Switch back to the edit. Let's pull up Trigger. Now, as you can see, there's a new control on Trigger, leakage suppression. Go ahead and just throw this up to 100. And let's do playback. Any waveform that's red is one you don't want Trigger to replace. Now I'm going to take it out of solo, and let's play it back with the whole track. Perfect drum fill. Sometimes the easiest way to get Trigger rolling in your track is just to go ahead and do an option drag and just copy Trigger that's already been programmed from, say, your kick drum over to both the toms. Now we can do it this way instead of the way we program the snare, because I manually edited my toms beforehand. This way, the toms won't reproduce anything they're not supposed to. Now all that's left is to go ahead and swap the sounds. As you can see, it automatically loads over what we previously had, and my settings are intact. Now all that's left to do is play back and see if it worked. So now you know how to work with live drums and Trigger, but what if you want to do something a little out of the box? How about you're walking down the street and you start beatboxing a great idea for a song, and you didn't want to forget it, but you also didn't want to have to play it back on a live set just to get rolling, or have to drop samples on your timeline? Well, I thought about this. What if I recorded, and then I copied that 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and then all I did was delete what I didn't want to be played by Trigger, the same way we did with the toms. So on the kick track, I have this. On the clap track, I have this. And then I left one track unedited to be my hi-hat. So here's what we do. Pull up trigger on each track, go into your sample library, and pick some kicks. And then play back and let trigger do what it does. As you can see, nothing's out of bounds. It's just limited by what you can perform, what you can capture, or beatbox, and your imagination. This concludes another Groove 3 tutorial. I'm your host, Dr. Ford, and thank you for purchasing Trigger Explained.